Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard. I'm Lauren Feldman. I'm here with Gene Marks to talk about the stories and issues we think business owners should be following this week. Welcome, Gene.
Hello, Lauren. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Got up early, played squash, ready for action.
Glad to hear it.
Very early.
As usual, you've been writing and talking about issues that matter to business owners. Let's dive right in. You wrote an interesting piece that you just published about a mid-Atlantic convenience store that I know very well, a chain called Wawa. That sounds weird to two-thirds of the country, but we know it well. You were taken with the chain's business model, and you actually write that it's a model for how you run your own business. Can you explain that?
I'll tell you why Wawa inspires. So first of all, for those of you guys listening that are not familiar with Wawa, it is a very popular convenience store chain on the East Coast. There are like 900 locations from Pennsylvania all the way down to Florida. Their biggest competitor is a company called Sheetz. You can't even compare them to 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven totally sucks. Wawa is like clean and beautiful, and the food is edible, and not only edible, but really good. And I'll tell you what inspired me. I mentioned when we were first starting, like I played squash. Like I play, when I go down the Jersey Shore, I play squash really early in the morning, like 5 in the morning. And I finish like around 6:15, 6:30. And every time when I'm driving back to my house, I always stop at the local Wawa for a cup of coffee. And it's always, bumping, and it goes in shifts, like you get the contractors that are in there at 6 in the morning, and then the school teachers come in after that, and then like the office professionals after that. But it's always popular. It's always been good. It's always, it's such a well-run, popular place. No one complains about Wawa. And I started thinking, like, what is with this company? Like, why are they so good and have been so consistently good over so many years? And, they really have sort of like these 3 pillars of success. And that's what I wrote about on Entrepreneur. I mean, for starters, their prices are very competitive, which is very, very important. I mean, if you're running a business, we all know that. I don't think I have to say too much about it. You got to be in the range of competitive pricing. They are. It's like $1.29 for like a 12-ounce coffee, which is certainly a lot better than what you would pay for a similar coffee at Starbucks, which is nowhere near as good as Wawa coffee. I'm sure you'll agree, right? But then there's 2 other pillars that I also like. There's choice and there's control. Like, I'm just using coffee as an example, but my God, Lauren, when you get coffee at a Wawa, there's like all sorts of different, mocha and decaf and Colombian and regular and, all sorts of, and then you have all these condiments that you can choose from as well. The honey and the cinnamon and the cocoa, all that stuff that you see at a Starbucks. But it's not just the coffees. If you go for sandwiches, if you go for snacks, if you go for refrigerated, there's a lot of choice at a Wawa, which is really, really good. And then the third pillar, so there's price, there's choice, and then there's just control, which means that, they give all the control to their customers. You choose how much coffee you want because you fill it yourself and how much sugar you want in there. But more importantly, when you place orders, they have self-service kiosks. You can really customize what you're getting. So like when you go into Wawa, you just feel like it's like a self-service place with really good quality at a competitive price with a lot of options. That to me is like, that's what a business should be all about.
But your business is very different. Your business is a business that helps small businesses with their technology needs. How do you relate the two?
It's a totally different industry, but I and I don't sell coffee, of course, but you're right. We sell technology and financial services, but we work very hard to keep our rates competitive. So, that solves the price issue. I mean, we're right there in the middle with our rates. So I work hard to keep our overhead what it is and to keep our rates competitive. We offer lots of different types of services for our clients. They can get, fixed price services. We have all sorts of things like, training and customization and development. Like if you need help with this product and we sell this product, there's a whole bunch of different ways that we can help you. And finally, we give our clients control as to how they want to spend their money. They can hire us by the hour. They can pay a fixed price. They can buy just a block of time to control the amount of time that we have. So like, I don't know, like just unconsciously, I kind of run my business a little bit the way Wawa runs its business. And that makes me kind of proud because they're awesome. So there it is.
Do you know why it's called Wawa?
I used to know that. You must know. You're Googling it right now.
No, I
so
think
tell
I
us
know.
why.
I had a friend who wrote a story about them years ago, and I could be remembering this incorrectly, but I don't think so. I think they grew out of a town in Pennsylvania called...
Yeah, there is a town called Wawa, Pennsylvania. That's for sure.
I think that's where they started. I think it's a name of a Native American derivation. The one funny thing, I wouldn't swear to this, but if I remember correctly, I think the correct pronunciation originally was Wawa, not Wawa. I'm not sure. I would suggest that you ask the typical Philadelphian where the nearest Wawa is.
Wawa is, yeah, you'll be punched in the face probably just for disrespecting Wawa.
It is bizarrely popular. You are definitely right about that. I'm not sure. I mean, it's fine. I don't quite understand the popularity, but you're right. It exists.
Yep. Well, I tried to explain it in that article, and I think, and I like I said, if you're running a business or you're thinking of starting a business, you take a trip to a few Wawas, you'll see the consistency among them, and you'll learn, like, this is, if I keep my price and give my customer options and give them control over the services or products they're getting from me, those are three really good places to start when you're running a business.
All right, next topic. On Friday, the latest jobs report came out, and this is one strange recession we're having. The report was that more than 500,000 jobs were created in the month of July, which is a bang-up month, at any time, and way more than the economists were predicting. Thoughts?
Yeah, I have two big thoughts on that. So for starters, I wrote a piece in The Guardian, which appeared yesterday, Sunday, which addresses the recession. And my point is, if people are asking if we're in a recession, they're asking the wrong question. The real question is who's having a slowdown and who's not? Because, Lauren, if that jobs report shows us anything, it shows us that we are not in a recession as a country. I mean, we are in a big country right now. There are parts of the economy that are slow and are struggling. I mean, construction and real estate is a perfect example, and technology industry is another example. Even manufacturing has been reporting across the board slower results. But geez, travel industry is like, they're kicking some ass. They've almost recovered to pre-pandemic levels. And even retail and restaurants. I mean, man, when I'm down the shore, I go to Ocean City, New Jersey, they're bumping down there. And same thing when I walk around the streets of Philly and when I talk to different people that are in the retail and restaurant industry. I mean, they're recovering pretty strong. So, like, you can't just be like, oh, man, are we in a recession or not? I mean, it's like, well, that's just not the question to ask. I mean, there are jobs being generated all over the place, and there are some industries that are just doing better than others. That's my first point. And then my second point is, I think this jobs growth number is understated. I think,
wow.
I think people, and I'm going to write about this as well, because I think we need to have a real reconciliation, what's the word for it? Like, when we have to really look, a come to Jesus moment with our numbers that we're getting from the government, because they keep, all these Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers are about employees, Lauren, And you and I both know over the past 2 years, like 10 million new businesses were started up. And you and I both also know that those new businesses are mostly freelancers and independent contractors, right? People selling stuff on Etsy or, working from home and, Uber drivers, whatnot. Those people are gainfully employed. I mean, I have a dozen contractors that work for me for my company that I give anywhere from, 10 to 30 hours a week of work, and they're getting work from us. They're not employed. They're not on the books. Like, nobody, the Department of Labor is not reporting on them. And in fact, when people are like, oh, labor participation actually went down, that's what the Republicans are saying. Like, oh, it's not all good news. Well, they're not counting all these people that are out of the workforce because they have their own businesses that they're doing, or they're only working part-time.
Yeah, the labor participation thing is an issue when there aren't enough jobs and people just give up looking for a job. That's not what's happening right now.
That is not what's happening. There's still 10 million open jobs right now. And it's all jobs, and employees. And I just think the government is not paying attention to all the freelancers and independent contractors that are out there that are working. And, that people are saying like, well, we're still, behind, in labor, from pre-pandemic in the sense that there's still less, workers out there, it's available for jobs. I'm like, well, that's because a lot of them are probably making money on their own, with their own side businesses.
I'm not sure that's even true anymore. I think we caught up with this jobs report.
Well, the number of employees caught up, but I thought we just said labor participation. I think the number of,
you might be right.
I don't know. I think there are more people out there working than even the government is reporting. And I think it's funny, all of this labor conversation about employees and the unemployment rate, it's like we're using the same methodology and the same statistics that have been used for the past God knows how many decades. And the world has changed. We've got a lot of side gig people and a lot of entrepreneurs and contractors and whatnot, 1099 workers. I think these calculations need to start including these people, because I think we're understating the number of people that are actually working in this country because they're not officially called an employee.
That's really interesting. I mean, there is a category for self-employed, but I guess that doesn't catch everybody, depending.
Doesn't catch, no, it does not. And again, these are surveys as well, so it's like, I don't even know if they're gathering the right amount of information that they need.
Well, the other thing, these numbers are always subject to change. They
do change.
Yes, sometimes significantly.
Yeah, but getting back to it, I mean, I just, President Biden gets a lot of grief. I mean, I guess he deserves some for just, some of the way he, acts, like an old man. But, the economy is, and then you're like two quarters of negative GDP defines a recession. Okay, but, it's our political leaders' job to get jobs for people. It's all about jobs. And like, man, if that's their job, how can you not say he is like crushing it? When you've got so many people working and so, such a low unemployment rate.
Let me ask you this. For quite some time now, whenever I talk to business owners, and I talk to a lot too, perhaps not many as you, but I ask people, how's it going? Are you seeing any indication of a softening, that kind of thing? And, most of the people I talk to say no, they're not feeling it yet. The one exception actually was you, not for your business, but you told me quite some time ago, fairly early on, that your clients were telling you that they were seeing a softening. Are they still saying that, or?
Yeah, they are. It's funny. First of all, this whole conversation is so unscientific and completely anecdotal, but when I talk to my client, which are mostly B2B companies and family-owned businesses, that kind of stuff, this is up until this week, because I'm still, I talk to my clients about this all the time. They still say that the demand is softening, and but nobody's panicking. And they still have open jobs. I mean, it's not like they're like, I'm not going to hire that great person when I find them, because they know that it's likely, it's just cyclical.
I saw a term in I think a Wall Street Journal, maybe it was Bloomberg, I don't remember where. I saw a term last week that I hadn't seen before called labor hoarding, about businesses where their business is softening, but they don't want to give up any employees because it was so hard to hire them in the first place. They don't want to take a chance.
And, it's funny, a lot of times people pay attention to these, the open jobs, the JOLTS numbers, the unfilled, jobs. And I actually think that number needs to be revisited as well, because I have a lot of clients that do have open positions for jobs, but they're really not filling them in a lot of cases. They're not actively trying to fill them. It's open, but if they stumble on somebody who like knocks them out, yeah, they would consider doing it. You know what I mean? But other than that, they're still kind of riding along. But they're always looking. People are always hunting for good talent. At least my best clients are always hunting for good talent, because they know, if they find somebody really good, they don't give a shit how the economy is going. They'll find a way to pay for that person because position themselves for the future.
All right. Well, we'll continue to keep an eye on the recession.
This weird recession with the lowest unemployment rate in the past 50 years.
All right, last topic for today. I want to talk to you about another piece you wrote that is yet another in your ongoing series on why you hate employees, at least as I view it.
I got another one coming up, by the way. I have just to interrupt you. We've been sending out, myself and a few people in my company, we've been sending out email messages campaigns to like a lot of corporations that we deal with and employees there, whatever. We are compiling. I've got dozens of out of office messages, and I don't mean out of office is like I'll be back on Monday. Like we're coming back. I'm off until September 15th from like some of the largest brands around there, and I'm like, oh my god, this is unbelievable how much time people are taking off right now. Anyway, I'm going to write about that too. Mainly I'm going to complain about it, but I'm also going to say that maybe we're becoming more European, which I think is a good thing. Maybe America's finally waking up. But anyway, we want to talk about COVID. Let's talk about COVID.
Well, they are related, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I will definitely be watching for that piece. But yes, I want to talk about COVID because as you disclose in this piece, first of all, you had it recently. You indicated that it was a mild case. You're doing okay?
Yeah, this is the first time I tested positive for COVID, mainly because I never tested myself. For all I know, I've had it 6 times already. I'm traveling. I'm all over the place. I'm doing my thing, And when I got it this time, I tested it because we had a family event coming up. So my wife forced me to test. And I had the sniffles and a cough, like a dry cough. And then I tested positive, So, the reason why and I'm not, I'm a dick. I admit it, but but I'm not trying to be a dick when it comes
Gene,
to.
You are such a nice guy in person and such a hard ass when you write. Are you aware of that?
Well, let me tell you something. I mean, it does intermingle with each other because, when I talk to my clients. And this has been for years. I remember one client, I had a lunch with my client, this is probably 15 years ago, and he was complaining about employees that call out sick.
And that, by the way, is the topic of your column. We should say that.
That's exactly it. It's calling out sick. And he's like, when would he goes, I would have to be like riddled with bullets. I would have to be like on my back to call out sick because I run a fucking business. I have employees and customers and vendors and suppliers that rely on me to do what I got to do. So I gotta come to work unless I am really incapacitated. And it's been the same thing with COVID. COVID has been like the greatest get out of work for free card ever invented. There is a bank, and I'm not going to name them, but there is a bank because we know some of the employees there. And one of the employees told me that if they test positive for COVID and they show proof that they tested positive for COVID, the bank gives them 2 weeks paid off because they tested positive for COVID. 2 weeks because the bank is terrified of not having a generous COVID policy because somebody's going to get on Twitter and complain about the bank.
Or maybe they don't want other employees infected and they're concerned about keeping staffed.
What I mean, paid time off, not even working from home, Lauren, And I had another guy I know who works for a large organization, again, not to be named, who told me he tested positive and and was very mild symptoms, but, he'd be out for a week. So, call him next week or email him next week. I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck? I can't call you. You're not working from home. You have mild symptoms. I mean, what business owner would do that? If, I had mild symptoms. I knew a few people that had worse symptoms, like a bad cold or the flu, and they were out for a day or two. And then they're back to work as well. In other words, Jesus, if you test positive for COVID, okay, yeah, you try to take precautions to stay away from people, but, for goodness sake, I mean, you stop all work? You don't even work from home? It's just like, hey, I'm going to just sit and watch Netflix now for a week because I tested positive for COVID and I have the sniffles. And don't even tell me that I'm alone in this because I can name dozens of business owners that I talk to who voice the same frustration with these employees, but they can't do anything about it because it's 3% unemployment right now. And, the employees control the market. So they gotta behave, but they grumble.
But do you expect employees to have the same attitude as business owners?
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. You work for a company. It's your job. I mean, do you not have any self-respect? Do you not take responsibility for what you need to do? You're being paid to do a job. You're not paid to sit on your ass just because you have the sniffles. And I understand if you don't want to come into work and spread it, there's those, which, by the way, I'm not a scientist, but that's a whole other argument about, if you're obviously if you're vaccinated and you're whatever, really what the effects is. It's coming to work with a cold now. But okay, I don't want to go there because again, I'm not a scientist.
You already went there.
But I could say, but you can't work from home nowadays. You can't, or the minute, you got to take 2 full weeks off. I mean, you can't just as soon as you test negative, come back to work.
Is this happening at your company? I'm just curious why you're...
No, we're a virtual company.
Right.
And my employees, it's like, don't ask, don't tell. I don't know. They don't know. I don't know if people have had COVID or not. I just expect them to get their jobs done. I don't ask them. Do you know what I mean? So it's just not.
Are they getting their jobs done?
Yeah, they're getting their jobs done. I haven't had any people.
So why are you writing a piece that implies that, most workers are looking at COVID as winning the lottery?
I'm not talking about my company, but I am talking about just dozens and dozens of clients and other companies, not only that I personally know, but then that I also read about because I read all the reports, and others I talk to all the time, where they are using this COVID excuse to just
all COVID cases are as mild as perhaps yours was.
I agree. Just like not all cold cases or flu cases are as mild as well. And again, without getting into the science of it, I mean, we have 0.00001% of people dying from COVID. The cases that we're seeing right now are so underreported because a lot of people are getting COVID like me and not even reporting it. So that makes the percentage of people that are hospitalized or dying just even that much more minute.
Although up since May, I think, with the latest variant, I think 400 people or something like that are dying in this country every day. It's not nothing.
Yeah, out of a country of 350 million people, and then when you start digging into the 400 people, you find out they have all sorts of other health issues, or they're old, or they're unvaccinated. And I think to myself, all right, well, if you're super old or health compromised or whatever, I get it. There are a lot of people saying, oh, I don't want to bring it, because my fifth cousin on my mother's side. I don't want to give that person infected. You know what I mean? So
that can be a legitimate concern. Look, as you suggested, neither one of us is an epidemiologist. I'm not interested in the giving healthcare advice here. But you are a legitimate expert on small businesses. You run one. You see the internal operations of hundreds of clients. You're a trained accountant. You know technology inside and out. And I'm interested in your apparent sense of just how widespread this is. I mean, to some extent, this issue has always existed. I mean, there have always been employees that abused this trust. What should be done about it? What should business owners do?
Yeah, there's no answers to that a business owner is going to like, because COVID is, the narrative is that if you get it, you or somebody else could die. Or contract monkeypox now. So therefore, if somebody in your company
contract monkeypox from COVID,
I know, I'm just kidding. But if you have, I can tell you what my clients are doing when their employees say they have COVID. The employers, they roll their eyes and they say to the employees, okay, I understand. Stay home, do whatever you need to do until you feel comfortable coming in, and leaving it up to the employee's discretion. When you work at a small business, you do have more of a personal relationship with your employees. You get to see them and interact with them a lot more. And I found out most of the employees don't really want to, they do take responsibility for their jobs because they do know how important they are to the operations of a small business. They don't want to let their bosses down. So they will tend to come back to work when they can. So I think if you take that attitude as a small business owner, I think that in the end, you'll be okay. There will always be a few employees that will take unnecessary advantages.
In my experience, pretty few. And that's kind of what I hear from the owners I talk to. I mean, that's kind of where you started when you were talking about us maybe moving in the direction of Europe. I mean, there have been a lot of studies that indicate that if anything, Americans work way too much and way too hard and don't take vacations.
Well, that's a different topic. I mean, here we're talking about just skirting work and using COVID as your shield to do that.
It's related.
The vacation issue is it's just a whole other attitude. And, that is something that I think, I think this the whole pandemic and the change in the workforce, the low unemployment, the labor shortage that we have right now, I think it's having profound, workplace changes for the better long term. And I know some people are going to argue that, we're going to turn into a social state like Europe is. I don't think the U.S. will ever be that.
What changes are you referring to for the better?
Well, when I say for the better, I mean more time off for people, but not time off for, I tested positive for COVID, I take 2 weeks off. I mean more time off like I'm accepting this new job and it comes with 30 days of vacation.
One of the examples you gave, I just have to point out, I think it was a bank. You said it was the bank that said you have to stay home for 2 weeks. And clearly they were doing that because they didn't want people to be infected. You kind of categorize it as being part of a narrative, like they're doing something politically correct. But I think they felt that, rightly or wrongly, they thought they were operating in their own interest, and it wasn't the employee that was shirking duty.
Lauren, it's so sweet how naive you are. It's so sweet. Sometimes you're adorable. You are adorable.
Please explain.
The banks, for doing this, they trust me when I tell you, they want their employees to come to work so they can get work done. And I think anybody working at, senior levels at a bank, if you were to talk to them over a beer with doors closed, they would tell you that this whole thing is ridiculous too. But they can't tell that to their employees, and they are desperately trying to find good employees. And the minute that word gets out on social media or whatnot that, our bank is harsh when it comes to COVID, and that's indicative of how they care for their employees, that's gonna have an impact on them. So what they do is they say, "Oh, you have a COVID. Oh, that's so sad. Okay, our policy is you can take 2 weeks off, fully paid, because we love and care for you." But trust me when I tell you, when the doors are shut, those same executives are like, you're rolling their eyes.
So I guess my last question for you is, it sounds like you don't really think you have this problem at your business. Why not? What have you done right that this isn't an issue for you?
Oh, I think I'm not different from a lot of small business owners in that I have a good relationship with my employees and our contractors too, by the way. And I trust them, and have the respect for them to take care of their shit. Do you know what I mean? So, if you've got COVID, if you've been shot, which there's probability of that, we do live in Philadelphia, or if you've got whatever other issues you've got going on, you've got your responsibilities to take care of. So I'm going to assume you're going to take care of them unless you tell me otherwise. And I think the people that work for me, and I've had very low turnover over the years. I have most of my employees have been with me for more than a decade. I think they would tell you that, like, I treat them with respect and adults. And they take care of their stuff. And I find out after the fact, like months later, oh yeah, I had COVID back in April. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, geez, how you feeling now? I'm fine. Okay, good.
What you just described is what I hear from a lot of business owners who treat their employees with respect as well, and aren't having the problem that you described.
Yeah, as a small business owner, if you treat your employees with respect, then the COVID issue shouldn't be as big an issue. But it's just the larger corporations, and the problem is that. Our employees do see and read about the banks that are offering the 2 weeks of time off for COVID or whatever. That doesn't help. You know what I mean? I mean, in the end, we've got good relationships with our employees, and it's okay. But it really doesn't help. Like we're then suddenly like, hey, what kind of a jerk are you that I'm working for? I should work for this bank, So that's all I'm saying.
All right. Well, let me just say, in real life, Gene Marks is not the hard ass he sometimes sounds here, and I'd like to think I'm not as naive as Gene thinks I sound here, but I'll let someone else make that determination. Gene Marks is a CPA who writes weekly on small businesses for The Guardian, The Hill, The Philadelphia Inquirer, The Washington Times, Forbes, and Entrepreneur. You can also hear him on ABC Radio's Eye on the World with John Batchelor. Gene hosts 2 small business podcasts with Paychex Corporation and The Hartford. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you, Lauren. We'll talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure. Have a great week, everyone.